the story within the actual fact of the ship splitting into two and sinking to the bottom of the ocean is the selling point, surprisingly enough, and is enticing enough to make you want to sit down, watch, and not miss a thing. Because then you're left to wonder, what'd you miss out on? Like they were saying right now with James Cameron doing this thing with Avatar 2. He was saying, I think he's in some article where movie is so good, pretty much, Avatar 2 referring to, that you're going to want to see it twice. If you go to the bathroom, you're going to want to go back and see it anyway. I strongly disagree anyone's going to sit through the whole movie. God forbid they got to go to the bathroom. They got to go. You know, humans got a human. They got to pee or shit, whatever. Come back and be like, I missed 5 minutes of this movie. I'm going to have to come see it again, considering inflation, 25 years since Titanic, which I'm sure it happened too. Maybe because movie theaters weren't that expensive back in 1997, you might have actually considered, hey, you know what, I gotta go to the bathroom, but I actually kind of like this. Or most like if you're a guy taking out a girl on a date night with Leonardo DiCaprio on the big screen, movie theater, cheap date. You know, you could afford to be like, hey, you know what, I had to go take a pee, but I know you liked this. Oh, I liked it so much too. I just had to go pee. It just happens. I saw all the water and the ice, you know, around, surrounding all these people. I couldn't help it but go to the bathroom. Let's come back, you know, a couple of days from now, just see it again, whatever. Quick excuse there, because this thing was in theaters literally for a whole year before it got taken out of theaters finally and then put on VHS cassette back then. You know, I'm talking ancient times. And then even longer to make it to like HBO and TV, period. So I would think, yeah, that's a good ploy to use. Why not have that as an excuse to go back? But then you wonder, again, it's about the Titanic, something that actually happened in history. You know, a tragic part of history because of so many people dying and randomly, of course, too. How do you make this appealing at all? Besides a big ass ship sinking in the middle of the ocean and 3 hours long, mind you, you have the audacity to do that. That's where the story comes in. Is it a great story? I'm going to say no, but a good enough story, well acted enough by the cast selected to have the story flesh out and become its own thing, its own really just drama unfolding at high seas, while really the most important thing is to keep in mind, okay, the ship at some point, we know it's coming, obviously, because it's in the name, Titanic. The ship is going to hit an iceberg. It's going to split in two. It's going to sink. But now we get this first person view detail of what it must have been like to be on that ship, which we're only getting from, you know, survivors who might have been able to sit down with somebody and tell the story, pen it down. I'm sure as technology advanced, they recorded somewhere too to get more details. I'm sure James Cameron and all of them, his whole crew, had to really do a lot of research to do this justice. Because God forbid you want to trigger anybody who did survive the Titanic into saying this is false propaganda. They're just making this sexy at the expense of me having to live through the horrors of having to be out in high seas and freezing my nuts off. I got my nuts got frostbitten, my cock got frostbitten, my pussy lips got frostbitten. I lost him, and I was genetically mutilated, courtesy of the Atlantic Ocean, and I got saved. But did I really live a life after that too? Jack is there with a friend who's Fabrizio, right? Who's Italian. They win tickets to get on the Titanic via a poker game literally held 10 minutes before the ship is about to set sail. So that's his chance for a new life. Apparently, as he tells Rose later on, when they're actually meeting with each other, he had been to America before because he names off Los Angeles. Or actually, right, because he's from Indiana. I forget the falls, but something Falls, Indiana, something like that. So he's American just over there by some chance, but he's trying his luck, you know, living by whichever direction the wind blows him, pretty much. He's one of those. So he wins the card game. He gets the tickets to the Titanic. He, you know, wins it off as a couple of Swedes who beat each other up because one bet the tickets and lost and the other one got so upset. But, you know, a fair game is a fair game. So they run off the Titanic. They get on. And from there, it's basically, you know, however romantic, you know, primarily romantic film works where, you know, they lock eyes with each other. It's love at first sight. She's rich, he's not. Usually it's he's rich, she's not, but it's the other way around this time. She's rich, he's not. She can't help but look back at him, give him a double glance. So that means, of course, when you do this to somebody randomly, that pretty much guarantees you're feeling them at some point, at least to some extent. So he's already got her in the back pocket. It's just a matter of when and where they're going to bump into each other and finally make it happen. But it does happen because she gets so sick of being rich and privileged. She says, to herself at least, I can't take this shit no more. I'm going to kill myself because I'm so rich and I'm so privileged. I can't bear to live this lifestyle. So she makes it to the back of the ship. She runs to it. She's dangling off the edge. She's about to jump. And of course, conveniently enough, Jack's taking a smoke break over there. She rudely interrupts his smoke break by just like stomping through like a fucking racehorse. He sees her and of course he has to save her because one, she's a piece of ass. And two, well, he's right there. And they don't have cameras and shit too, but for some reason they might just pin it on him because he just happened to be walking by with his poor ass, peasant hobo looking clothes and shit. They have a whole conversation. He says, trust him, please. The water's ice cold. It's going to cut through your fucking body like knives and shit. Don't do it. Take my hand. Come back over here. She believes in him because, of course, as any woman would, I'm sure, she can't help but look at his fucking face and be so enticed by how attractive a man he is, that of course she's gonna fucking reconsider jumping off and be like, you know what, at least let me get some cheap fucking dirt poor dick out of this guy, if all else fails. I'm sure that's what's going through her mind. But considering she was about to jump off the ship and kill herself, not primarily that, but eventually reconsidering things at the moment, at the drop of the hat, right? So they catch him. They think, oh, he was trying to I think they were trying to pin him for trying to rape her. But she says literally, oh, you know what? I slipped. I was about to fall off the ship, but then he came in and ran over. One of the guys points out, well, why did he take off his shoes and jacket? Which he did because he was basically trying to convince her not to jump because, he was like, oh, if you jump, then I'll jump too. And then fuck it. I'm already, guilty by association just being here too. Which I guess is what motivated her to not do it in the first place too. But again, pretty ass fucking young ass Leo DiCaprio, who wouldn't fucking reconsider doing what they're about to do if he says, hey, you sure you really want to do this? Just imagine my, his face over mine while I say this. But she tries to deny him, but she sees some more proof again of like a little girl being forced by her mother to like sit up straight and act like a lady, all coy. The little girl's probably like 7, 8 at most, but already learned how to use like the salad fork and the other kind of forks surrounding her too. And again, she's convinced, I don't want that to be my life. So no way in fuck am I going to settle for this shit, being a rich bitch, being a boring rich bitch my whole life. So she goes out to run to find Jack. They do their thing. They're fucking running amok. They're cheating on the fucking fiance left and right. Any given fucking chance. She's boned up. He's bricked up. Young love, young, horny, passionate love. They're just trying to get it out of their system. And they come to the point where, you know what? It's basically, he's convinced her so much that he lives a life that she really wants and wanted all along, that they're going to make the plan to make it to the U.S., to America, where, Titanic's about to dock, had it made it, and make a whole new life for themselves, even though he's literally like, I have nothing to offer you. I know this and you know this now, but I'll make it work somehow, which sounds enticing too. But if you really think about it, what's there really to offer to her, courtesy of him? Nothing but probably dick, a couple of laughs, and rummaging for fucking food and money, and maybe getting kicked out more than a couple times from places because he couldn't make the rent. And then she's obviously not going to marry the rich dude, and her mom has no money and probably going to disown her. So then she'll be just as broke as him, and they'll both be broke together, presumably happy. But then once the horniness wears off and they're in their 30s, then they're going to strongly reconsider. And then I think at that time, divorce wasn't even an option, or if you're too broke to even like afford a lawyer, there's no such thing as divorce for you, I guess. I don't know how it worked back then in 1910, 1920s, but who knows? So of course with that, obviously at some point where they're too busy getting horny and fucking, the ship of course hits an iceberg. That shit happens. And of course, the rest of the fucking movie from that point onwards, it's like, everybody that's on there pretty much is dead, guaranteed dead. Some people are left to survive because they worry about women and children leaving first on the lifeboats. They make that happen, but of course, it's not going to be a dramatic ass selling point in the movie if it ain't Jack and Rose, the ones left behind on the fucking boat, because she is a woman and because there are plenty of children, she is off and rich. She is offered a spot initially on a lifeboat to get on, but she doesn't want to because she's not with him. He was locked up and cuffed up because, we'll talk about that later on too. So she runs away to try to find him. She doesn't want to get off on the lifeboat. She doesn't. Then they got another chance to get her on too. She doesn't want to do it again. She actually does get on this time, but then she jumps off because she wants to be with Jack anyway. And then they just commit to each other, basically, you jump, I jump kind of thing, where basically the last half of the boat that's sort of intact but sinking anyway just goes vertical. They're at the tip top. They're riding the tip basically, like she did plenty of times on him, cheating on her fiance, and they sink. They make it to the fucking water. There's the whole thing with the raft. We're going to discuss that too as well later on. Believe me, there's a whole controversy still 25 years later with the raft. James Cameron really got pissed at having to discuss that still to this day. We'll again touch on that later. And of course, true love is what keeps Jack alive enough to talk her into wanting to live, to continue without him because he's pretty much dead. And she's on the raft the whole time, dangling, clutching for dear life, trying not to freeze out there in the mid-Atlantic Ocean water with ice surrounding him too. He dies, of course, because he can't live forever. He's not Iceman. He's not fucking, Mr. Freeze or nothing like that. So, of course, he freezes to death or pneumonia or whatever sets in too. He literally gets so frozen that while they were holding hands and she fell asleep, of course, of all things in the middle of the ocean, she had to break away from his frozen ass hand. That sets it. And he sinks to the bottom of the ocean to never be seen again. She's saved. And then we get the whole point of the fucking movie, which is really some dude on a ship that was trying to a dude on a ship that was trying to excavate and find the heart of the ocean, this one precious gem on a necklace that was given to Rose, of all people, but they didn't know that. They don't find Rose until later on when she sees on TV that they were trying to do that shit. She contacts the guy. He flies her out to tell the whole story, and we get the whole romantic intertwining of Jack and Rose via her retelling the story of her being on the Titanic, meeting Jack, cheating on the fiance, being a horny bitch, and coming into the possession of the heart of the ocean. So, with that being said, we make it to the very end. It's basically the end of her telling her story, her love for Jack, the reason she took his last name and shit too, instead of Rose, whatever fancy foofy ass name she had in real life, or she was about to marry. She took his last name, Dawson, and made herself Rose Dawson when she touched back down in America. Now, keeping in mind, Rose kept the heart of the ocean with her the whole time, knowing while she's there on this ship with people actively trying to search for and look for this heart of the ocean itself within the remains of the Titanic, deep fucking practically the ocean floor and everything too. She's got there the whole time. The movie ends with her taking it, leaning off the edge of the ship, or the whatever ship she's on right there, and yelps like a chihuahua. Oh. I thought she hurt herself when she stubbed her toe, like trying to get on the railing too. She got on too fast, but she as she just tosses the thing into the ocean, knowing they were looking for that the whole time. Where she's so inconsiderate, she does it when no one's looking, like a fucking thief, and just chucks into the ocean. That's fucking rude, but whatever. And that is the end of Titanic, basically. So that's a synopsis. I mean, again, besides the fact of me telling you, hey, by the way, before the Titanic sank, at least a day or two before it did, two young horny kids fell in love. They made out a bunch of times. They finally fucked in like a car that was in the bottom of the deck of the ship. They steamed up the windows and they got caught anyway too. And they lived until the very end. But then, the guy had to die because the girl was so selfish, making her own raft in the middle of the ocean. And she lived to be 90-something. And only then decided to take the one gem she had in her possession and throw into the ocean after making all these people believe there was nothing there the whole time, which there wasn't. But she could have just said, hey, by the way, I got the gem right here if you really wanted that bad. Which again, I don't know why they wanted to begin with. It's hers, technically. Possession is 9/10 of the law. So what are they gonna do with it but taking a piece of jewelry from an old ass lady, right? Rose Dawson was absolutely, I'm sorry to say this and have to phrase it this way, but let's be honest, let's just be real. Rose was a hoe since 1912, all right? When it happened on the Titanic, everything that fucking happened, all they did, this team that was looking for the heart of the ocean, the thing she was holding on till the very end of the fucking movie, all they had to go off of initially before she made the call to them and say, hey, I just saw your telecast on the TV. I might be of interest to you if you're still looking for more evidence of whatever happened at the Titanic. Meanwhile, they're digging up fucking safes. Was in the possession of the who was supposed to be the husband of Rose. They dig it up, and guess what they pull out? They pull out fucking Jack's art, specifically the drawing he made of her while she was naked, with her titties out and everything too, wearing the heart of the ocean. And she's like, that's me. I used to be a dish back when. All proud of herself like she was a whole piece of ass. Yeah, sure, Grandma. Like 80 years ago, you were a piece of ass. But we're talking about nowadays. What's your ass good for now to help us further this investigation, this search for this fucking precious gem? Nothing, basically. But of course, she has to retell the fucking stories just like old people do. They sit around, I got a story to tell you about when I was younger, and whatever. They might as well be sitting around a campfire, basically, just waiting for Grandma either to finish a fucking story or croak, whichever comes first. You know, she came plenty of times and she was retelling the story too. I'm guessing, hopefully not, but her old nipples were probably getting stiff just thinking about Jack and Jack getting off on her, basically, right? But imagine being so rich that you can basically buy a portion of the ship for yourself that's the same square footage and or size of like a decent sized 2-bedroom apartment here in New York. It's crazy to think how much of that was available to them. They had a drawing room, they had a fucking reading room, they had a lounge, outside-ish, but not so outside, obviously, because they don't want to be exposed to all the open weather in the sea too. Just open space area, a living room, and basically like 1/4 of the ship just belonged to them, to Rose and her fucking what was supposed to be a husband, and just for them, all alone. And on top of that too, literally the space they're given on the ship is enough for them to bring, for some reason, I don't know if this is a rich thing to do back when, I hope it's not now because it just seems really tacky and unnecessary, enough to bring your fucking paintings from home, your portraits. Well, actually, I guess because they were moving from, England back to America, right? So I guess that makes sense thinking about it now. But imagine having enough space where you feel the need, you know what? For the length of this trip, I need to have my paintings, my portraits here on the wall all around, so I feel more at home. But you're in the middle of the ocean. Just be patient. You get there, wherever you're going to be home at, wherever home is in America, and you can hang all the portraits as much as you want. But no, they're that impatient, they're that rich. I guess they were so rich that they were that bored, and they would do stupid shit like that. And on top of that too, so rich that the dogs they had to bring on, the Pomeranians and all the fancy lap assholes, whatever you call those dogs too, on ship, who's got better fucking hair than most of the third-class peasants on the bottom deck of the boat do. Those dogs have the privilege of going down to the lounge where all the poor people are at, or they're like free to roam, in the open air, weather permitting and stuff. Their dogs are free to roam that deck where the poor people are, to shit and to piss and do whatever they gotta do, and presumably bite and give people rabies and all that too. It's crazy to be that rich and think, you know what? God damn. What's it like being poor on a fucking big ass ship like that? What's the point? Why bother? Why even have poor people like that on the ship? But whatever. That's a lot of fucking rich white privilege just flexing on everybody, like Hulk Hogan flexing. What you gonna do, brother? Well, my white privilege runs wild on you, basically. While Rose and the rich to-be, presumably husband, are settling in and shit. Everybody else is getting on the ship too as well. The ship is set sail, basically, heading for the high seas of the Atlantic Ocean. Pretty early on, comes the infamous part, and I quote, "I'm the king of the world," as said by Leo DiCaprio, with his friend Fabrizio in hand. They run to the very fucking front of the ship. There's dolphins like chasing the ship alongside. He, dangles himself off basically the front of the ship and says, "I'm the king of the world." And, who wouldn't feel like that? 1912, big ass ship, about to embark on a brand new adventure, a brand new life in America, considering he's already American, obviously, but going back home now with free ticket back home, basically, on a luxury ass cruise ship. Best friend in hand. Fabrizio seems like a good kid, ready to just take on the world again all over, pretty much. But imagine, there is the fact that, presumably, supposedly, nothing confirmed yet, I think. I think there's a site, but I gotta look it up if anything. There's supposedly a Titanic 2 in real life being made. Not a sequel to Titanic. Not this whole fucking, let people forget enough about the first one. Let's hit them with the sequel when they least expect it, a la Avatar from James Cameron. No. There's a Titanic 2 in real life being built where it's going to be another cruise ship. I don't know if the size of Titanic or bigger, if anything, because they always got to go bigger. Whoever fucking believes in consumerism that much. Capitalism, I mean. And it's supposed to be bigger. It's supposed to go the same route of the original OG Titanic, and obviously, hopefully not fucking crash or sink to the bottom of the ocean like the first one did. But I know that was being built or worked on pre-pandemic. I'm not sure what the status is since the pandemic or now post-pandemic, but let's see if it comes to life. But God forbid it does, because with the kids nowadays, 110 years later, the age that Jack was at that time, even though he didn't exist in real life, obviously, I cannot imagine the amount of fucking influencers who are going to hop on that ship to hit that same exact pose, and the fucking ship deck ain't gonna let nobody pull that same kind of shit. Because imagine, everybody is gonna be in line or bum rushing the front of the nose of the vessel to hit the same fucking pose. No one's gonna get enough time to hit it properly. They're gonna barely get it. "I'm the king, it's my turn, ready, fuck," and pulling each other out. And people are gonna go overboard. That's a guaranteed. That's a given. So they're going to be fighting kids off. They're going to be fighting old men off. They're going to be fighting, women off and shit. Like, oh my God, this is where Jack would have stood. He had lived and shit too. Whatever. Flicking their clits at the front of the fucking ship. "Oh, Jack, I feel you too." Whatever. "I'm coming for you." Or, there's going to be some fucking idiots who took the movie too seriously. And they're going to jump as soon as they touch base on the Titanic 2. To be like, "I want to feel the same way Jack felt. I'm a hero too." Yee, and just fucking yeet themselves overboard. So there's going to be a hard time for the ship crew and deck to keep people away from jumping or being stupid at the front of the ship or doing shit in the back of the ship or trying to reenact the Titanic the best way they could via the movie and all that, right? All right, so everybody's pretty much settled in, right? The rich people are on their side of the boat. The poor are on their side. Basically, top for the rich and the bottom for the paupers, for the poor folk, as we established too. Basically, the bottom deck is not just for the poor folk, but also for the rich people's dogs to take a shit and piss and whatever. Maybe they had cats on board, I don't know. Or where they kept the rats, if anything, too. Because they do make a presence later on in the movie, the rats. But at some point, Rose steps out because she's stepping away from a dinner or lunch, whatever it was, that she's really fed up of being a part of, because it's just the fiance and her mother and everybody else scattered together talking about the money and the riches. More money, more problems, basically, too. She's out there looking out deep into the ocean, deep in thought, just thinking about her whole life. Probably this was right before she actually tried to jump ship, literally, later that night. But while she's looking out to the ocean, guess who's right there at the bottom deck where the poor folk are the whole time, doing his thing, sketching and minding his business and just sketching some random-ass lady while he's there? Is good old Jack. He happens to glance up from his piece of paper and spots the lovely, beautiful, chef's kiss, beautiful as well in their own rights, Kate Winslet, Rose up there minding her business, staring out into the ocean. He's obviously looking up in her direction and at her so hard, she can't help but notice. She glances down at him, holds like a 2-second stare, looks right back up away at the ocean again, but then looks right down back at him again. So right then and there, she's sold. You can't tell me otherwise. Because if you give someone a double glance, that's pretty much it. You're enticed enough. And of course, she's glancing back at him and she sees fucking Leo DiCaprio. Jack Dawson. Young ass Leo DiCaprio. looking back at you, locking eyes and smiling and smirking, whatever, how are you not going to be enthralled? How are you not going to be fucking so flattered that, your panties are slipping right off your fucking legs the more and longer he looks at you, basically? Because believe me, later on when she does run off to the back of the ship and she's like just fed up with the whole dinner and the whole ritzy lifestyle, and she don't want to live the life of fucking having to put on white gloves just to pick the right fork and knife to eat salad or cut the steak properly with, she's ready to jump off the ship, off the back end of it. He just happens to be there, Jack, enjoying the smoke break, looking up at the stars too. She's just stomping all around again, like I mentioned before, like a racehorse, getting to the back of the ship. He's interrupted with the fact of having to save her ass from jumping. He does have to talk her out of it too. But just imagine if, let's say, Rose was getting saved or talked out of like jumping off the ship by someone not as good looking as Jack was, Leo DiCaprio. Let's say someone deformed, big ass hairy mole, bald like me or something, sounds like me or something. I think she would have really jumped anyways. But because it's a young Leo DiCaprio, who's not gonna be able to fucking be talked down out of doing stupid shit like jumping off a ship like that too? Just taken by the hand, she's looking at him long enough too where she's obviously convinced, you know what, I might have to do what he tells me to and just maybe reconsider this whole jumping off the goddamn ship thing. They're spending so much time together. They're so enthralled with each other. Well, she's really more taken by him, and obviously he's like, damn, she's a piece of ass. Why not? And she's rich too. Ooh, I'm getting the bag and I'm getting the snatch too. Why not? But what do you think would happen if you're caught with another guy on a ship who is younger, much better looking, obviously too, but also poor as fuck? So, I mean, but then again, you think like, okay, if the fiance or soon-to-be husband would have caught her with another rich guy, would it have been such a big deal? I don't think so, maybe. Maybe they would have had like a duel. They would have just started slapping each other with white gloves. But I guess the really insulting part towards him was that she's messing with somebody who's like way beneath them, even though she is broke too, technically, but just because of her name, she's able to stay afloat and at least get hitched to his rich ass, or soon to be very rich ass. But he's more insulted by the fact that she's messing with a fucking bum practically. A good looking bum, definitely. We'll see later on. Of course, he dresses up very well, cleans up very well. But how is he expected to react after finding them both together and knowing they're running off behind his back? And she's making him look like a fool because there's other people seeing them together, Rose and Jack, and he's not there anywhere to be involved. So how do you think he's gonna fucking react when they gotta spend breakfast the following morning after she's been out all night with him, with Jack, drinking beer at the fucking the poor people's party with the Irish jig band doing their thing? She's chugging down beers. She's challenging guys to arm wrestling matches and like bouncing on the tiptoes to show off her strength because she used to be a ballerina and shit, dancing and getting caught by the fucking fiance's like goon valet, whatever you want to call him. And then they got to spend breakfast the next day too. As soon as the help steps away from serving them tea and the crumpets or whatever, of course he flips the whole table on her and he's basically ready to choke her out and punch her lights out. Remember, this is 1910, so who's going to say anything to him about him doing so if he did? But she's acting like all dramatic, like she did something so wrong, or like she's really the victim, playing the victim role. He flips the table out of frustration. He smashes and flips the table out of frustration. Really well acted on his end. He's really good as the bad guy in this movie, Billy Zane. Love his fucking performance the whole time too. But she's acting like, what did I do wrong? Why is he overreacting like this too? Whenever the guy has to overreact or openly express their emotions or their frustration out of something, they're always looked at like we can't control ourselves. Well, we got limits and we got, boiling points too, hoes. Come on already. But then, of course, up until that point, she didn't obviously cheat on him. But this might be controversial coming from me, a guy, because we're usually defending this point as not being cheating. But at this point, everything they're doing together, all the time they're spending, all the little fucking flirty activities they're doing together and then spending nights with each other, even if it is just having fun and dancing and drinking or whatever too, that is cheating. It absolutely is, because you literally are having fun with who's not your significant other, or in this case, who's not who you're about to marry. I'm sorry, it is. Even if it's just having fun, entertaining yourself with someone else at the expense of who is your spouse or who is your other half you're supposed to be doing that stuff with. If you're doing it purposely with someone else because you know you'll have more fun with them, that's cheating. I'm sorry, but that's how I fucking look at it, like that. God damn. All it really took for her to be all fucking bricked up herself to get a fucking clit as stiff as a diving board is just one kiss on the fucking deck, right at the same spot where he declared I'm the king of the world, is the same spot they go to hit the infamous pose that everybody tried to replicate on every cruise ship from the movie, where she's standing at the point, he's right behind her holding her arms out, she feels like she's flying, he's right behind her, he's the wind beneath her wings and shit, and they kiss right there, they make out, all romantic, all cute and shit. Yes, it is, but it's officially her cheating. It's officially her confirming how much of a hoe she is, how much of a good time she's having without her soon-to-be husband slash fiance slash whatever. She's a fucking hoe. I'm sorry. Being a hoe at a high C, one kiss, one makeout session is more than enough for her after having reviewed thoroughly his paintings of all the French girls he'd fucking painted before when he was over there in Le Paris, is enough for her to say, you know what? My turn. My turn for you to paint me naked, and you gotta do it with nothing on except for this heart of the ocean jewel that my soon-to-be husband gave me because he's a simp. He's simping over me. I haven't even gave him the pussy juice yet. He hasn't even been in the same room where he can catch a whiff of some wet pussy juice from me because he's got me that dry, as wet and as surrounded as we are by water and the high ocean. He hasn't been able to finger me, for God's sakes. But you, Jack, you can get to see all the goods. And boy, oh boy, did he. And boy, oh boy, did we as well, too. Thank God for this shit. And PG-13 somehow, too. I didn't see it in theaters. I didn't see it till way later in HBO. And I remember clearly what happened and why I only got to watch, I think, up to this part back then on HBO, on illegal cable like we had back then, me and my mother. Because she's so horny for him. But no fucking just yet. She's still blue balling him, even though it's surrounded by the clear blue water and shit around the ship and everything too, right? She's still blue balling him to the point where she says, no, you gotta draw me naked. I have to like and approve it first, and then we can fuck. No problem, no questions asked. As beautiful as you are, you gotta work for this fucking pussy. And she makes him do so by having him paint her naked, draw her, I keep saying paint, draw her naked, because that's what he does, he draws. With nothing on underneath the robe, and she's got the heart of the ocean gem around her neck. So it's a really nice piece considering. Obviously, he didn't draw it himself, Leo DiCaprio, but whoever did, good job. Really appreciate you doing that, bro. Or sis, who knows? I don't know. Could have been a female artist doing it. But as she's taking the robe off, boy, oh boy, you got to appreciate the tits on 1997 Kate Winslet. Mwah, mwah. To each one, left nipple, right nipple, mwah, mwah, mwah. Each one deserves their own chef's kiss. Beautiful piece of work. And again, I'm surprised this was PG-13 back when, how it must have been in theaters. I don't know if parents were really taking kids to see Titanic, but if they were, the pleasant surprise for the young boys, at least, grown into puberty of seeing big old titties on a big old screen like that too. Well, you know, it wasn't really HD 4K like it is nowadays too, but pretty good enough if you were like, let's say, 10 years old, front row with your parents, drag the fucking see Titanic, you're still fucking awake, in and out of it too. There was no cell phones, nothing to look at too. You had to watch the movie or fall asleep. Maybe they brought a Game Boy, but then maybe they happened to look up from the Game Boy up to the screen. They're greeted by fucking like 20-foot high titties and shit. So it's like, looking at the Game Boy, looking at the fucking pants. Daddy, why are my jeans getting so stiff? Or whatever, looking at this pretty ass redhead lady and shit. Now I remember, speaking of, when this was on HBO the first time, I want to say like 1998 or so, I was 13 years old, but according to my Spanish-ass mother, I was still too young to appreciate tits or even know about that kind of shit, let alone look at it in the same room on the TV while she's present. So I remember her snatching the remote with lightning speed, but of course she was getting so frantic that the fucking remote was doing like a Chinese acrobat pattern routine performance, just fucking fumbling it all over the place to try to flip the channel or something else because she wouldn't let me see tits. But I got to see plenty enough of the tits because they were smart enough, at least PG-13. I'm guessing there's time limits and or how much titty you can actually see. You get to see the tits while she's standing up. You get to see the tits while she's laying down, getting all propped and set. And she tells him, paint me like one of your French girls. Sorry, draw me like one of your French girls and shit too. And she's all propped. Titties is fucking out there and well pronounced and beautiful and perky. Woohoo, beautiful. I got to see plenty enough. So by the time she flipped the channel, it was already over with, as I found out years later when I watched it on my own again. But I was like, Ma, come on, it's just tits. She's like, you're not supposed to fucking see that. You're 13, you're a baby and shit. Well, okay. I'm technically old enough to make babies if I really wanted to. If you're Puerto Rican or something, no offense. But she didn't let me fucking see it, so I had to watch it way later on after that. You know, the rest of the movie, I mean, for myself. But it is also a bitter point at that point as well, too, because that's when Rose says, while she's telling the story to the rest of the crew, trying to look for the heart of the ocean gem as well, that's the last time the ship saw daylight, as the sun went down on them both, just admiring each other's bodies, well, more specifically Jack admiring Rose's body by drawing it to, you know, preserve it into the annals of history as well. Her perfectly milky, perky titties and shit, right? Because this also does bring you back to the main focus of the goddamn movie, and the whole point of the movie being named with its name, Titanic, mind you. It's about the Titanic, and it's about the fucking ship again, finally. It's only been like an hour and something, almost 2 hours now, just them fucking back and forth, necking, making out, painting each other naked. I keep saying painting, drawing each other naked, basically, right? Of all things, it's clear now the fiance, the soon-to-be husband, is simping so hard for her. Why not? She's visibly younger than he is. She's a piece of ass. She's got a good name to, I guess, well, she's marrying him, so of course she's going to take his last name, presumably. So he's the one that wins in this case too, but he's simping so hard that he buys her the heart of the ocean gem that she's already made aware of, and she's already wearing for Jack for her to draw her naked with. And you'd think it's like, however much it was worth back when, that gem, forget inflation now, forget how much it will cost, because of that big fucking tumor-sized rock he fucking bought for her to wear around her neck, of all things. He's doing all that shit. He's basically renting out 1/4 of the ship strictly for them, for however long they're going to be in the high seas for, to make it back to America, and marrying her on top of that too. She's only been with Jack for like 2 days. He hasn't even bought her as much as a fucking hot dog, probably. And teaching her how to fucking spit loogies out the side of the ship, and how to just chug beers and arm wrestle and all that too. And she's already fucking giving it up to him within, again, 2 days, which is fucking crazy. But again, that's a woman's logic. He made me feel things. He made me have fun and experience a new lifestyle I never thought I would. You don't make me feel those things. You make me feel dead inside. Okay, sure, whatever, bitch. More proof of that between Rose and Jack getting so busy being young and horny, making out with each other, running away from the fucking goon, so much so that they escape with each other to the bottom of the deck, past the crew actually doing some work on the ship, shoveling coal and keeping that thing powered and going so that they can make it to the final destination. Oddly enough, they finally fuck in the car, they're stuck in the car, they're doing the thing and shit too, but they are so busy making out, fucking, doing basically whatever's set on their own mind to please themselves with, because they're selfish, both of them, really, Rose and Jack. And the crew, they're like navigating in the middle of the night. Now, I would think a ship that big would need to have big lights. Now, of course, I'm speaking about 1910, 1912 to be exact. I don't know how the ship's lights would have been back when, but point is, when you have something that would like clearly point out a big ass iceberg directly straight in front of you, within eyesight, in the dark too, it takes the two guys on the very tip top of the ship at the very front to be like, oh shit, there's an iceberg, you know, telegram the captain to let him know we're about to hit a fucking iceberg. It doesn't turn right now, basically. By the way, 1997, I am being considerate of the fact that CGI back then wasn't so advanced, but this is a very bad looking fucking iceberg. Well, again, I'm looking at it from the point of view of 2022, 25 years later. Mind you, this is 1997 again, as I mentioned already, but that's a pretty bad looking iceberg. So of all things, you would see that thing dead in front of you, coming at you like that, literally coming towards the ship like that. But everybody's so busy in their own fucking world, being rich, being poor, or Jack and Rose just fucking being on top of each other day and night, basically, that they don't see the shit coming. They don't notice the iceberg is right there in front of them. And holy shit, it hits. It looks convincing enough. But then and this is the point I'm trying to make too as well. I'm going to make this later on as well too, but right now I think it needs to be said. No movie, absolutely no movie, merits or needs to be anywhere near 3 hours long, even up until this point, because right now, an hour and 40 minutes into the movie, we've already seen the highs and lows of Jack and Rose's romance, all the ups and downs, the fucking drama, will they, won't they finally fuck, they make out, they do all this. She's clearly cheating on her soon-to-be fucking husband. And then it's made official. Emotionally, she's already cheated, but then physically, she fucking cheated anyway. She sealed the deal anyway with, of all things, a beautiful young Leo DiCaprio. I don't blame her, who could really, but still, she sealed the deal as far as being a hoe. It only took an hour 40 to do that. And it's an hour and 40 minutes until finally the goddamn iceberg, where the whole point of the movie is finally to start the show, and wrecks the fucking ship, and everything starts to fall apart from there. But you'd think, god damn it, it'd only take maybe another 10-15 minutes to sell the selling point of the Titanic movie. No. From this point out, we're not even halfway done with the fucking movie. Believe it or not. I wish I was fucking lying. But you get at least another hour and 30 minutes of the whole drama unfolding. Because now, first it was a drama of Rose and Jack. Will they, won't they? Emotionally cheating, physically cheating. Now the rest, hour and 30 minutes in the movie, is the drama unfolding with the fucking ship basically splitting itself in half and sinking eventually, because we know this is history. It's been documented. It's been proven to be true. I don't think there are Titanic deniers like there are, for some odd reason, Holocaust deniers. But we're not touching that at all, too. I digress. I'm just saying, holy shit. This didn't need to be 3 hours from this point onward. We got the gist and the fucking juiciest, thickest part of the story with Jack and Rose and the whole ship involved from right there and there. If it was up to me, I would have fucking made another half hour at most. A 2 hour and change movie would have been more than fine. But James Cameron is going to James Cameron. You'll see why. When they see what happens when the iceberg hits the ship, they feel compelled enough together, oddly enough. You would think, you know what? Let's split up. I'll just pretend I wasn't with you. You go back to the poor part of the ship. I'll go back to my fucking rich ass to be husband and be like, you know what? The iceberg hit the ship. You know, we might be in big trouble. No, they decide to go hand in hand together and tell the fucking soon to be husband / fiance together, hey, you know what? I cheated on you. It's official now. But by the way, the iceberg that was dead in front of us just scraped against the ship, and I think we might be sinking and everything too. So that's way more important to me actually cheating on you this time around too. But whatever. While this happens, the goon, the gun for hire from the fiance, plants the heart of the ocean stone into Jack's coat pocket, which he had stolen, by the way, too, from someone else. And they make it seem like, oh, he stole it. They fucking get him arrested and cuffed. And they take him to another room and cuff him to like a steam pipe and shit. So they're literally split up. Meanwhile, the ship is already sinking. It's already been hit. You know, it's starting to flood from the bottom, working its way up. Started from the bottom. Now we're here. Pretty much like Drake. I don't know. They stand in the room together. Rose and the fiance. How does she not expect him to not just fucking slap her or break her neck or something? But she got off easy. I'm sorry to be honest with this, but she got off easy with just getting slapped one time across the face for being a fucking hoe at his expense. Okay, you don't want to marry the guy. You don't want to be with him. Whatever. Okay, 1910, I get it. There's no such thing as rights for a woman besides a left and right. if they start to act up. Sorry, no offense, but I'm saying that's what it was back then. Those were the times. It's well documented. If you don't want to fucking marry the guy, okay, maybe you got no choice at this point because you were forced into marriage by your mother. But at least if you're going to cheat, at least be a little subtle. At least some respect for the guy that's basically funding you to be alive at this point, your mother to be alive at this point too. Some subtlety. But no, there's no such thing as that with her. She's all out or nothing pretty much, just like he is, like fucking Jack. So he's a bad influence on her, I'm sorry. As good looking as a boy as he is, he's a bad influence on Rose. And it's rubbed off on her just like he rubbed off his nut on her fucking thigh. They never cleared it up. Did she ever get pregnant with him? Or, oh, wait a minute. They only fucked once, presumably, right before the ship sank. So if he didn't get his nut off and she never got pregnant, wait a second. They never cleared up with the granddaughter. Well, she's a blonde and I think clear-eyed too, like he was. Yeah, they never touched on that, actually. Who knows? Maybe he didn't knock her up after all, which would have been better because, of course, that's broke-ass sperm she got in her. They finally make it to the lifeboats, but, of course, Rose doesn't want to go anywhere without Jack in sight. So the first time she makes it to the lifeboats is when they're only letting women and children on. She doesn't want to get on the ship with, she doesn't want to get on the boat with her mother, so she runs away, tries to find Jack. She does find Jack. They're back together, but then they're caught again by the fiancé. So then he convinces them both, oh, you know what, I'll make a deal with Jack. He'll come with me on my lifeboat, but you get on first and go to safety and shit. She gets on, she sits down, she makes it like 2 seconds and jumps right off to the bottom deck. And they chase each other back down to the hall where they fucking met at the dinner they had before too, where Jack had finally gotten dressed up courtesy of the fat, rich lady that no one liked because she was like new money and shit. They're back there, you know, you idiot, you're so stupid. Why'd you fucking jump off the boat? You could have saved your own life. It's like, no, you said you jump, I jump. I'm not going anywhere without you, babe. I need that fucking fat cock to please me once we touch down on shore in the good old US of A, goddammit. And he's like, you're right, goddammit, because I can't go anywhere without your sweet fucking pussy all over my goddamn face. Sit on my face now. Oh, no, wait, we're sinking, right? We got to get the fucking moving and save our asses. And save some other people, too, if we have to, basically. So they do that. There's a whole chase scene afterwards with the fiance when he's like all frustrated that they're still making it out together. They're going to end up being together at the expense of him being a simp for her too hard. He's shooting at them both. They run back to the bottom of the ship. So all over again. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Working their way up like a fucking Mario versus Donkey Kong thing, like just working from the bottom to the top to save the princess, in this case, save themselves from a sinking ship, presumably, hopefully, but no, of course not. They're too worried about being with each other. The power of love is going to keep them fucking alive. And at this point now, everybody's getting desperate because the women and children are first, but according to boat crew and staff, they're not filling up all the life preserver boats, or whatever you call those boats, I forgot the name. They're not filling all the boats up to full capacity. Some boats are getting half, some boats are getting quarter full for some odd reason. At some point, one of the guys has to shoot one of Jack's friends dead because he keeps insisting he needs to be led on. Fabrizio's right there alongside him to catch the guy while he's dying in his arms. The guy's so shocked at what he did, he shoots himself at the fucking edge of the ship, but whatever. Now, here's a very highly debatable part. As everyone's fucking flinging and flying and shooting off the side of the ship and dying pretty much too, a very controversial part of the film is when Rose and Jack are basically in the middle of the ocean, presumably left to die, but they do find a plank of wood where Jack, because he loves her, of course, puts her on. Kate Winslet, Rose, whatever the fuck her name is at this point, I forget. But she's on the plank. He does try to get on. That is clear. He does try to get on too. Obviously, he wants to like stay out of the water. But the thing sinks and flips. So he's like, fine, you stay on there too. Now, the really controversial part is, looking back at it, because they did already establish he tried to get on, but he wasn't going to be able to stay on. It would sink or flip if they were both on. There was no room for her. There was no room for Jack on that. As much as I want to envision, she was a greedy bitch. She was being selfish and thinking about herself the whole fucking time. Even up until that point, she's floating on the plank and won't let him on. There was no room for him on it, unfortunately. But hear me out. This might sound crazy. I do think for some odd reason, if she really loved him as much as he loved her, clearly to leave her on the plank of wood floating, they would have taken turns getting back into the water. Okay, babe, you had 5 minutes on the plank. Now, you get back in the water, I'll hop on for 5 minutes and like defrost my legs and shit so my dick doesn't like cut clean off my body. Then I'll get back and switch, whatever, too. I would think. But there was no considering that whatsoever. And of course, the power of love is what compelled him to keep her alive. Because I guess he said, I'm broke, you're rich, you can at least go back to being rich. You know that lifestyle in society. You got people probably waiting for you back in New York or Philly, wherever she's going to. I got nothing to go back to, so I'm going to die just broke, at least in the middle of the ocean. I lived a long enough life, whatever. I guess presumably. And then he dies. But then, he's clinging on to the side of the plank. Of course, he freezes to death because of pneumonia and frostbite and all that shit too. And imagine if he would have lived. His lower half of his body was in water, freezing water so long, his dick definitely snapped off and or his sperm got compromised to the point where he's shooting blanks because there's no way he's getting pregnant once they touch back down to USA. I would think so. There's a lot of shit. James Cameron, too, has done scientific research to prove people wrong as far as people always harassing him with like, oh, but why didn't Jack just get on the plank? She was being selfish, that greedy fat bitch, whatever. Of course, he would get tired of having to answer it, so he tried to scientifically prove it just to shut people up, basically. But there is proof there. I thought so, too, at some point. It's been so long since I watched the shit again. But, yeah, it's proof right there. Like, he wasn't going to fucking make it on the fucking plank. He did. It flipped over. It sunk a little bit. It wasn't going to be able to hold them both. Unfortunately, as much as we want to envision the opposite, reality is Jack was meant to die anyway. He said himself, James Cameron, he was always meant to fucking die. It was always supposed to be about Rose because Rose is so fucking selfish. But whatever. All right. So then, of course, she happens to find a whistle off a crew member floating that's already dead, rips off his lips when she hears that like there's a crew of boat guys passing by. Is anyone still alive? Takes it from him, blows a whistle. Shouts to Too Short, blow the whistle. They see her, they bring her over. Okay, boom. She's able to live. They bring her in alive, pretty much like she was a criminal. She defrauds. She makes it back to the U.S. Before getting off the ship, they ask her, what's your name? She says, Rose Dawson, in honor to preserve the memory of Jack, of course. And then we fast forward, of course, to the crew, just basically in tears over her fucking retelling of the story. Then we cut back to her waltzing the fucking way her old ass to the back of the ship now again, where it looks like, wait a minute, is she gonna jump? I've seen the movie, I know already she's not gonna jump, but is she gonna jump all over again just because Jack ain't here? It's already been 80 years. He ain't been there all them 80 years. Now she's gonna fucking jump when she's so old and lived a whole ass life too. But whatever. She makes it look that way, presumably, because she's climbing up the railing, and again, she yelps like a fucking chihuahua when she steps too hard on one, like, whatever. But it's really her grabbing the fucking heart of the ocean. She had it with her the whole time because it was still in the jacket pocket. She grabs it and she throws it out off the back of the ship back into the ocean. After the fucking crew captain already said, you know what? We dug through everything possible. We rummaged through the fucking the wreckage of the Titanic. There's nothing to find there. We're pretty much done here. I was a whole fucking failure. Let's just fucking jump ship and get out of here too. After he gives a clear sign he's no longer interested in finding nothing, only then does she grab the shit and flings into the ocean where it belonged in the first place too. And that's how we end Titanic. And then we get the fucking infamous, of course, My Heart Will Go On from Celine Dion that plays in the credits, which oddly enough is a fun fact. We almost didn't get that fucking song because James Cameron was apparently notorious for not having music and or original songs playing in his stuff. He always wanted to just like compose pieces of music to do the job for him, which makes sense. I mean, he did that with Terminator 1 and 2, so okay, I see where he's coming from. But the composer said fuck that, and without his permission, without him looking, he basically took a piece of the main theme from the movie, had it sent over to Celine Dion and her writing partner, and they handed in a demo of My Heart Will Go On, who was first played for the Fox execs. They loved it, and they said basically to Cameron, okay, use that or else, basically. Well, I mean, he was probably so far into the movie, like, there's no way for them to say or else. But they had to convince him still to do it, and only because they pointed out she was also Canadian like him, James Cameron. He was like, oh, okay. Oh, so she must be good then. I trust it then. Whatever, we'll use it. Supposedly there was some story where she didn't even want to do it initially, but I guess they probably paid her and her writing partner enough that, like, well, you know, c'est la vie, why not do it? Basically, right, because French-Canadian. But it's odd that, you know, the final green light was given by Cameron only because they told her she was a Canadian too. So it's like, oh, okay, she's Canadian, huh? So, okay, it must be good then. Yeah, you know what? I'll use it. Because he had even said at some point, like, I don't even know who Celine Dion is. But only until they said again she was Canadian. It's like, oh yeah, sure. You know what, let's use it, Come on, There's an alternate ending that was shot apparently, where before Rose throws the heart of the ocean into the ocean to let it stay there forever, the alternate ending they shot was that the crew captain who wanted to find the heart of the ocean in modern times saw her at the back of the ship about to jump presumably, but he runs to her to save her from jumping, but sees that she has it in her hand. He lets her hold it in his hand for like a second or two, but snatches it away and just throws it anyway. If I'm the fucking captain and I spent all my time trying to dig exactly for that shit, I'm grabbing her by the dusty old ankles, I'm flipping her over the fucking ship, she could fall over too, and I'm running back to the crew. And I'm like, guess what, guys? I did say we're fucking packing up and going home, but you wouldn't fucking believe the dumb luck I just had right now. And what just happened? Turn that whole shit around, stop everything, and just start digging for that shit like a madman all over again. Fuck that. That would have been a horrible ending. But whatever, they didn't go with that ending, obviously, because James Cameron also said he wanted to make it more about Rose and getting closure on her story than making it about the ship and the crew, whatever, too. Understandable, but geez, that would have pissed me off if I was the fucking captain. I really would have killed her old ass if I just saw that happen in front of me. But of course, we're not here to talk elderly abuse, obviously. And also, one more fun fact is that Jennifer Aniston was almost in the running for Rose, which I wouldn't have been mad at that at all, too, because 1997 Jennifer Aniston, good looking, great fucking tits on her, too. I don't know if she would have gotten topless. Has she gotten topless? I don't think so. I don't remember. I think there was one movie she got topless for, but escapes my memory. Or my memory. Which one she did it for. But okay. But what I would have been mad at is had they cast Matthew McConaughey, all right, as Jack instead of Leo DiCaprio. Now, you know, Matthew McConaughey, good looking guy too, but no. He would have, obviously as an actor, he would have dropped the Texas accent, the good old boy accent, but still, I don't see him being Jack. Leo was just the right pick. Already established as a good actor, already convincing in all his roles he's played. He did a good job with it too. So thank goodness we didn't get Matthew McConaughey, we got Leo DiCaprio instead. Now, a final score of the movies I gotta give it as I gotta do with every movie I do here and who this been watching, especially this one, Titanic. 25th anniversary review of Titanic, goddammit, to be specific. To be perfectly honest, my only real nit to pick with this movie would be it's too fucking long. As much as the drama's built, I want to say beautifully between Jack and Rose, will they, won't they, the build up, the payoff, them getting together and promising a whole new life together with one another once they touch soil in the USA and all that shit. It really didn't need to be a whole hour and a half extra of the ship breaking in half, sinking, falling apart, people dying all over the place for an hour and a half. I could have done without that. I think at that point, an hour and 40 minutes when they finally hit the iceberg, another half hour of that shit would have been just fine. Because it's overselling at that point too. How more dramatic can you get than just showing people dying in every way possible too? I know this is a selling point as far as the drama involved with different people dying and, you know, the ship filling up with water obviously too, but I just still feel till now, half an hour more of that on top of an hour and 40 would have made it 2 hours and 10 minutes, just fine right there. It's a little too long. I'll admit though, the 3 hour and 15-minute watch time does kind of pass along steadily. It's not like I feel the 3 hours, but it's still there. And again, I just think 1 hour chopped off would have been just fine for it. That's my opinion though. Whatever, James Cameron knew what he was doing in 1997 when this dropped. People still love us. People still go back to it. Never watch this on TV, especially with the non-HBO versions. Like, don't watch it on fucking TBS they show, because it's gonna be like a 5 hour version pretty much. But if I gotta give it out of 2, let's see. You know what? If I gotta give it out of 2, because the real victim here is Jack Dawson the whole time. Poor Jack. Just because he was class shamed and everything too the whole time. He was a pawn to Rose Ho game. She's expressing to his grown-ass son, who has his own problems and the only one working in the trailer park household, that her main issue with Greg is that he won't go down on her. Which, I mean, if you look at Kim Basinger, who wouldn't go down on her? Especially in 2002, still holding up like plenty fine and mighty well. Who's not going to go down on her? So, of course, the most logical response he can have in return to his mother, talking about, my boyfriend won't go down on me. My sex life sucks. Help me. Hear me out at least. All he can say is, Mom, and just slam the door in the face. Like, who wouldn't? 20, 30, 50, 60 years old yourself, and if your parents are still alive talking about that shit, I don't need to hear that from my mother. I don't need to hear that from my father. Nobody that's a family member like that, I don't need to know about what's going on or what's not going on in your sex life. So shout out to Kim Basinger, you know, my beautiful in this movie, beautiful woman as always, she has been. But out of the 2 Jack Dawsons, I gotta give this a 1.5 Jack Dawsons. Beautiful young man, but great acting by Leo DiCaprio. The real selling point of anything of the whole film. I mean, Kate Winslet too at that time was awesome to look at, especially her tits. But yeah, the only thing I got to take away from it is that it's too fucking long. I didn't need a fucking hour and a half of people dying and dramatics building up like that. I think an hour and half an hour on top of the hour and 40 till we finally get to the impact of the ship into the iceberg would have been plenty enough.
Yo, it's over. All right, it's over. Move the mic. Thank you. All right.